You're listening to Female Founders with Claire Bartlett, the podcast that tells you what it is really like to be a female founder in today's world. We share invaluable insights through personal journeys and real-life business experiences, highlighting the highs and the lows so you can move forward in your business with ease. I am passionate to share with you the realities of business and give you the strategies and simple steps you need to truly succeed with your business. Today's episode is brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of female entrepreneurs and a proud sponsor of the Female Founders podcast. Managing your business finances can feel overwhelming, but Xero simplifies it all and gives you the power to keep your books in order and your mind on growth. Xero have offered an amazing 50% discount on your first 3 months with them. So if you'd like to take advantage of this amazing deal, just search refer.xero.com/female founders or follow the link in the show notes. Don't forget to give this show a follow to make sure you never miss an episode and share it with any incredible female founders you know. But for now, let's jump into this week's episode. Welcome to Female Founders. Today I am thrilled to welcome Dawn Baxter, founder of Beyond the Dawn Digital. Dawnie is not only a digital marketing expert, but also a certified positive psychology coach who's dedicated her career to empowering female entrepreneurs. Through her innovative agency, she's transformed the way women build and market their businesses, focusing on sustainable brand growth, comprehensive social media strategies, and personal empowerment. Dawnie, I cannot wait for this one. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It makes me sound really fancy, that introduction as well. I love it.
Well, thank you for fitting me into your busy schedule. I know you've been up to all sorts recently, haven't you?
Yes, we have. We've been absolutely all over the place in terms of our schedule. We do like to have a full summer kind of schedule ahead of us, but we started a bit early this year for sure.
Yeah, I had a little spring break. So, to start off the episode, I just want to ask you if there's a pivotal moment or person that you think puts you on the path to where you are today.
Oh, that is a really, really interesting question, and I do have a really good answer for that. So, I used to work for kind of the jewelry industry, and years and years and years
Right.
ago, in one of the kind of places where I worked, there was a situation that wasn't particularly pleasant, actually, that occurred, and this is probably motivation backwards, but it is kind of a pivotal moment that's always stuck with me, as
Mm,
when you reflect back, had that thing not happened, the trajectory that I went on would never have occurred. So I always
yeah.
kind of, it's like a placement location pin in my journey, even though it's not, I'd love to sit here and say, oh, there was this inspirational moment where, the clouds parted and the sun shone on my face. It wasn't quite that situation. But I
Yeah.
basically had this situation where I had been trying very, very hard to be seen. And I'd been working very, very hard, and I'd been putting my heart and soul into what I was doing. And there was motivations in the way that I was working because I'd felt this kind of wave of creativity. And I really, really wanted to do the absolute best that I could in this particular role. And my manager at the time was going through some personal stuff and going through a quite a difficult time. And they were dealing with situations that I wasn't aware of in terms of additional work pressure and stress, as well as all of their personal stuff going on.
Mm,
And there was a bit of a situation where I was getting completely overlooked, and I just was not being seen, and I definitely wasn't being heard. And the more I tried to myself into some position where actually somebody would value the amount of effort and energy I was plowing into my situation, it seemed
yeah.
to go in the opposite direction. And it all kind of happened into a crescendo where this particular manager was having so much difficulty with the situation that she had, that she kind of spilled out some of the issues that she was having and laid them at my door.
Right.
And I'm not one of those people who is usually very strong when it comes to standing up for herself. I mean, it's funny me saying that now because even me saying that feels completely alien. But the person I was at that point, she didn't
Yeah.
have a backbone. She didn't stand up for herself. She wasn't okay with conflict. She wasn't okay with not being liked. She was a complete people pleaser. She was a let me lay down on the boiling hot coals so that you can walk freely type person. And I didn't know that I was ADHD at the time either, and I've recognised now that some of my behavioural traits in that moment were very much my neurodiverse brain kind of going for it. But
Mm.
I was basically offered the opportunity to admit to mistakes that I had never made in my role. Um,
Wow.
and I felt the injustice of it. And for the first time in my entire existence, I found my backbone and I said no. And I refused to accept that which did not belong to me. And it was rough. Honestly, Claire, it was one of the
Mm.
hardest things I've ever had to go through because the people that I was dealing with, I very much loved and respected as well. So these things, it's not like it comes from an enemy. Do you know what I mean? These are people
No,
that I loved and
makes it
adored and
worse.
worked with. Oh, my heart was shattered into a million pieces, and my idea of what my career would be was shattered into a million pieces.
Mm.
There were belief systems that I had held over what I was doing here and why I was working the way I was working, and they all, in an instant, no longer existed. And I went through a very, very dark period of trying to explore what would be right for me next. Now, as it transpired, the actual company that I worked for, absolutely fantastic company. And when investigations were had, there was no evidence for that information at all. I was offered to go back to the same role that I'd always had. It was one of those things like, actually, it shouldn't really have happened. Let's just, move on from it. But at that point, the damage for me emotionally had been done.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't go
Um,
back.
I couldn't go back. I
No.
couldn't. I literally felt like I'd given my heart on a platter and it had been smashed into smithereens with a hammer, and it was like
Oh.
picking up the bits and pieces. Um, and don't get me wrong, there's no kind of bad feeling towards any of the people involved, and definitely not the company as a whole, because I still adore that company. But yeah, it was definitely a pivotal moment for me where I recognized that actually, maybe the path that I'm on right now isn't the right path.
Mhm.
Maybe this is something that I need to address within myself. Why does this feel so bad? And I kind of explored my kind of ambition, the area of ambition that I'd held within myself. What was I really truly interested in? What was it about this that I loved so much that it would have such an emotional detrimental effect on me with even the slightest negative experience? Now, I speak to friends that have worked in corporate for years and years and years. And when I express that situation, they almost laugh it off. Like, that's just the way corporate is, Dawn. And you can't have a long term
Mhm.
career in corporate without the occasional blip like that. People are people. We all make mistakes. Occasionally, we try to blame each other for things. It happens. But for me, it was massive. So I had to really, really dig deeper. Why did this have such a massive effect on me emotionally? And it just came down to
Mm.
the fact that I really truly cared, and I had so much more to give. And I had been really trying to carve myself a little pathway so that I could give more to this company because I felt so emotionally connected. I was completely engaged,
Yeah.
with my role. Which when you actually hear that back, it's kind of sad, right? Because they really had me. They really had me all the way through. Um, and yeah, so kind of long story short, that changed my perception on what I wanted. It changed my perception on what I was willing to give, and I made the conscious decision rather than trying to force this body of people who obviously have different things that they have going on, different agendas, different directives and objectives for them to concentrate on, rather than trying to force their hand into seeing what I have to give. Why don't I create for myself a completely different outlet for this
Mhm.
feeling, for this motivation to create and to do and to change things. And so, whilst on maternity leave with Jack, perfect opportunity for me to explore that kind of area. And I just started creating. I made myself a little business, a little side hustle, and I started digitally creating graphic design prints for home decor and clothes ranges and just anything that took my fancy. Actually, I just totally allowed myself to be um, kind of drawn into whatever felt right, and that's how all of this came about. That was the catalyst of how it all came about. And I genuinely believe without that dark period, that 2 week period of
Mhm.
absolute kind of professional heartbreak. Although, if I'm being completely honest, it was entirely personal as well. I was really, really sad all the way through about the whole
Yeah.
situation. Um, but without it, none of this would exist. So it's yeah, sometimes when you're in that dark moment and you're like, this is awful. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, how do I even make it through? And then I look back now and I think, God, I'm so grateful. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to that manager. I'm so grateful to that situation. I mean, I'm sorry that she was stressed and she had lots of things going on, but I'm sure she thinks that I would be harboring some resentment. The only thing I ever harbor is absolute gratitude because life is so much better
Yeah.
now, and it would never have happened without that moment.
I love that. And that actually is scarily similar to my situation in why I went into business. So I think all the time, actually, it is negative experiences that put us on our true path more than, like you say, sunshine through the clouds. And I had been employed and I had never, ever, ever, ever thought of working for myself. I was incredibly similar to you in that I had no, self confidence at that time. I didn't have a backbone. I was, you know, just trying to do my best in my job. And I
Yeah.
felt like I truly mattered at that company. It was a very small company. I'd been there a long time and I really felt valued and respected. And I went on maternity leave and I was really looking forward to going back. And I got to the end, coming towards the end of my maternity leave, and I was like, I'm going to use my adult brain again. I'm going to have adult conversations, like really excited about it. And it was about less than a week till I was due to go back. And they phoned and said, we're going to have you back, but we're putting you in a different role. And it turns out apparently that they have to, for maternity cover, they have to give you a role back, but it doesn't have to be your role back. I had by this point over 10 years of working my way up, slogging my way up through the accounting, chain to the position I was in, and they were taking me completely out of the accounting function. They were putting me into
Oh,
like an admin role, and I was, emotional. I was leaving my baby. That was
yeah.
hard enough as it was. I felt like I'd worked for years of my life for a career that suddenly they were taking away without any discussion. And I was heartbroken. Like you, I felt like I really mattered. And suddenly the slap in the face that I'm just a number and I didn't matter to them at all. And I think I went back for 6 weeks. 2 weeks of that I was off ill because my daughter kindly brought home hand, foot, and mouth from nursery. So I got that. So 4 weeks, I think, in total I worked, and I cried every day because I hated it and I hated leaving my daughter. And so I quit and I set up my first business. And I was so sad in that time, like you say, exactly the same. I was so heartbroken and how is this happening to me? But actually, by far the best thing that could have ever happened. So it's funny and
It
scary how,
is.
as you were talking, I was like, yeah, that was me, that was me, that was me. So yeah, look where we are now,
Yeah,
though, hey?
I know. And I do think that there's a real kind of benefit to being able to look back at almost all of those experiences. If you are the type of person, I don't know if you're like me, Claire, but I'm really good at tapping back into those moments, especially where there's been emotional distress. Like my brain, it just
Mm,
sears it in my brain, and I can almost time travel in terms of like reflecting back to how bad those feelings are. It's happened a few times to me where I go back and I kind of sit myself in that moment of grief and try to recognize what it was that was happening around me that I couldn't see yet, that actually was going to be a bit of a golden
yeah,
nugget. in the situation. And I do that now in business all of the time. Anything that feels rough, I'm like, okay, I need to remember that the roughest times are always the golden nugget times. And I can't see it right now because it's foggy, but I'll be able to
Yeah.
look back and figure out why this is happening, what needed to occur at this point. And there's power in that.
hmm I'm very a big believer in the universe and that everything happens for a reason. So if I'm ever in a situation that feels really uncomfortable and it's not a nice situation to be in, I always just tell myself, well, there's a purpose to this, and it means
Yeah,
something better is coming in the future, and that's got me through a lot of tough times. So, but
yeah.
yeah.
That
So
belief
how long
system
ago
is
was that?
stellar.
Yeah, exactly. So how long ago was that happened
Oh,
to
that was
you?
years and years ago. That was so Jack was born in 2017. So it was a long,
Wow.
long time ago. But
Yeah,
yeah, that was the kind of key moment. And don't get me wrong, there's I could probably attribute two or three different pivotal moments, but that's the one whenever I explore in a reverse engineering kind of way, which one was the one that took me off the path I was on
yeah.
and kind of threw me in a different direction. That's always the thing that comes back for me.
And
Always.
do you find that potentially because of the time in your life that you were pregnant or you were on your maternity leave, that actually that's potentially what made you stand up more for yourself and say, I'm a parent, I need to build that support and that security for my child. Do you think that maybe played a part in why you
Yeah, I
reacted the way you
mean,
did at that time?
it's possible. I also, and I don't know, how people will receive this, but I feel a little bit like Jack had um, some influence into that. So there was
Mm.
this study about how when you carry a boy, they will leave their DNA print within you. So you are forever changed once you've carried a boy.
Oh,
And
wow.
when all of that was happening, I was actually pregnant with Jack.
Mhm.
So, and I always wonder because the person before that day would not have been able to stand up for herself. Don't get me wrong, it was a shaky stand up at best. There was lots of tears.
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly Xena warrior princess in that moment. There was lots of tears. I was very emotional. I was very shaky. Um,
Yeah.
but I did, for maybe the first time in my life, kind of go, no, I can feel an injustice here and I have to say no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to fight this. And at the point of saying I'm going to fight this, I didn't know how big that dragon was. I had
Yeah.
no idea. And I was looking down a barrel of situation with no knowledge as to what my rights were, no knowledge as to how big or bad this could get. I was walking into a lion's mouth as far as I was concerned. There was
Mhm.
no understanding of any of this stuff. And I always wonder if that perhaps happened to me, and if just a little bit of Jack had already kind of transcended and
Yeah.
changed me somewhat. Certainly feels like a pivotal moment carrying him and that happening at the same time. It could be coincidence or it could be synchronicity, like who knows? But
Mhm.
we're always looking for where those gifts from the universe came from. And sometimes I do wonder, like, was it actually Jack that gave me just that thing that I was missing to stand up on my own 2 feet and say no? Because obviously I have Bailey and I was already a mum before all
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very, very strange situation. I had a burning, deep desire for justice.
Mhm.
And it felt, just truly unfair. And I know life is unfair, I get that, but it just felt so rough. And I was like, no, I can't have this. I just can't. I felt really, really strongly about it. I have to fight it. Um, and then I think actually maternity leave and having the opportunity to be at home with Jack did give me the chance to kind of explore what do I want to do? Like, what would make me feel good in this moment? And I was kind of
Yeah.
looking towards an element of self care as well. And again, didn't know I had ADHD, so didn't realize that this was a level of self care, giving my brain something to be stimulated by. But
Mhm.
I had a very, very tough time with Jack as a baby. He was colicky, he didn't sleep. There was lots of complications. It felt like he was the baby that picked up all of the illnesses. And, it happens to us
Mhm.
all, doesn't it, sometimes at
Yeah.
some point. Um, but I just had very little sleep, very little time to myself, and then when I did have moments of time to myself, I wanted to do something. I didn't want to sit on the sofa watching TV, or I'm quite an avid reader, but I couldn't even sit and read a book. I just didn't have the capacity to be still. I
Mm.
needed this creative outlet to kind of begin, and that's when obviously I filled that gap, and it didn't just help me from a creative standpoint, but it also helped me financially. So I'm like,
Win-win.
win-win. Yeah, yeah. And then it's easy to say the rest is history, but it kind of is. That was the
Yeah.
beginning of the snowball.
So that's amazing. And now, obviously, you help and empower so many other women through the support that you offer their businesses. So it feels like, a full circle. You found that empowerment in yourself for whatever reason. And now you help other women really stand and own their space, which is what I'm so passionate about, what I'm trying to do every day with the work that I'm doing. So, what have been the challenges you faced in business as you've grown? Is there any particular challenges you think you've come across and how you've overcome them in business?
Oh yeah, there's loads, darling. I mean, you and I could probably chew the fat of this one for months and months and months. I think one of the biggest challenges that I came across to begin with was marketing as an industry is usually, or at least it was 5 years ago, kind of headed by this masculine energy.
Mm.
And in the industry of marketing comes hand in hand its sleazy cousin sales, and between the two of them, it's quite a shark territory. And obviously, I came into the industry pink and fluffy and girly and very feminine. And although I am strong and I show my strength in ways, in quiet confidences and things like that, I certainly cannot stand the way that marketing traditionally, and I'm not saying, all of the time, but in a quite large portion percentage of the time, is actually done. So when I first kind of, got out of my boat and got to the shores of marketing, I wasn't welcomed with open arms by the industry. If anything, I was kind of laughed away a little bit, because this was a serious money making situation, and I was just this
Yeah.
pink fluffy little thing trying to empower. The majority of the people that I worked with at the time as well were mums just like me, on maternity leave or not working in any other capacity, and trying
Mhm.
to create businesses from their kitchen tables around potentially multiple children, definitely around partners and
Yeah.
bills, and sometimes mental health issues, chronic health issues. There was a whole kit and caboodle. And who's this girl walking in? She wants to help all of these small time kitchen um, female entrepreneurs, but I did, and I was serious. So that was kind of the first thing. And we never went head on. It was never a David and Goliath situation. We kind of snuck round the back. And whilst they were
Mm.
still trying to figure out what was happening, we just took over. And I love that we did
I
that,
love
because
that.
on a head fight, we would have lost. We didn't have
Yeah.
the resources to go up against an entire industry. So what we did was we quietly and carefully just kind of poisoned the well, and slowly took each extra little bit of percentage of this understanding and this new visibility, and that it can be done in a different way, and that it doesn't have to be, if the whole roast beef of how marketing has been done, men with cigars in boardrooms making friends and all that crap. And we just slowly took back, inch by inch, a little bit more of the pie, and
Yeah.
pass that pie around to the ladies that we were working with. So that was probably one of the biggest ones. It's funny now because we now operate completely differently with a completely different internal and ethical structure to most of the marketing agencies out there. And yet we do traditional marketing deals with those big brands that wouldn't have looked at us twice at that original time when we first came on the scene. So that's nice. It's nice to
Yeah.
know that we've shifted the industry. And I'm not sure whether this is true of other places in the country, but in the north, it was a big thing having a female digital marketing agency. It seemed quite significant that that was kind of happening, which is
Mm.
ridiculous when you think about it was
It should be,
2019.
but it
Do you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like, where
yeah.
were we? Why were we so late to that party? But anyway, it is what it is. And then I think the only other one of note that is interesting is that when I got to a stage of the agency actually taking on employees,
Mm.
there was a difficulty there in managing people.
That's a very
And
common one.
right, because that's not the reason for a lot of us, it's not the reason why we start a business.
Yeah.
And you just accidentally find yourself kind of the head of what is now the most significant kind of thing that people are doing. Like you're in charge of 12 people's mortgages this month, and it's
Mm.
crazy how that shift changes. And I think I was prepared for bad times. I thought there would be a bad hire, or there would
Mm.
be a situation of conflict, or there would be a situation similar to what I'd been through in my previous career. I kind of like geared myself up. I put on my emotional armor, ready for the bad stuff. And actually, some of the most challenging things that have occurred have not been um, malicious or intentionally with conflict. They've been people that we love and care about dealing with real life, real human things, and having to find ways to support and surround them whilst also maintaining business.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that it was going to be the rough stuff was going to be rough and the easy stuff was going to be easy. And I didn't realize just what a mixed bag of that middle part
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's new. That's a thing that I'm only just now starting to feel like I've got a handle on. But that was a rough education as well.
I think there is a term, accidental manager, and I think it's exactly what you say, that when we go into business, unless we've done it in our careers previously, we don't have that managerial experience. And I am I like to be friends with everybody, and I don't think I fit well naturally into a managerial role. So that was definitely something that I've had to work on in my business. And it's like you say, sometimes you would expect, or we might get a bad apple in the bunch, but that's not necessarily where the pain points are. It can be the best, juiciest apple in the bunch, but actually they need interesting support, something unique to them that you have to do while supporting and still running your business. And it can be the whole world of employment can be a real challenge for people. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I 100% relate to that one. And I think that is a really common one. When I've asked that question to many people, it's usually around that topic somewhere along the lines. So do you have the best piece of advice you have ever been given in business? I know
Oh,
it's
the
a real
best
tough
piece
one.
of advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think the best piece of advice that I was ever given was almost validation. It
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily advice. So the second coach that I worked with, I had worked with I'd worked with a couple of coaches in one container, in one kind of like situation. So I worked with them, and then I worked with another lady. And the second lady that I actually worked with, we were talking about all of the things that I wanted to do. And again, hadn't had my ADHD diagnosis yet. So it's key to note that there was some vital information that would have supported me at that time that was
Yeah.
currently missing. And the advice at the time was give value, stay in your lane, do this one thing, take something, don't be a jack of all trades, take one thing and master it. And that was kind of like the general advice, and it was everywhere.
Mm.
Um, so I had this great conversation, and I was dealing with some stuff personally at home. There was some key decisions that I had to make, financial decisions that were going to have a personal effect on us, and there was definitely some opinions from my ex-husband at the time
Mm.
around whether I should make risky moves and whether I should do certain things. And I just had this really upfront and honest conversation about I'm so sick of trying to contain my motivation, contain my passion for this into one arena. And I want to do this and I want to do this and I'm interested in this and I really want to learn how this works. And I'm so interested in this, and these things bring me joy and these things really kind of fill my cup. And she just said to me, she said, you may not be able to juggle every single thing in one go, but what makes you think that you won't do all of those at some point? Like why do you have to put things down? Like maybe set
Yeah.
them down temporarily, but do we have to actually abandon them? Like do we have to make that choice right now where we walk away and we'll never go back? Like is opportunity that scarce that we could lose any of these things really? Could we just take one of them, get that up on legs, and then, take a look back at all of the other things that we're interested in? And I just remember saying, like, I am multi passionate and I want to remain multi passionate. And she was like, so be multi passionate. This is your
I
life,
love that.
like, so,
I
so do it.
literally feel so empowered just listening to you tell the story there. Like, that's amazing. And like you say, so often we are sort of made or told to keep ourselves in a certain box and in our lane. And actually, I love that term, multi-interested and multifaceted. Like, you should do whatever you want to do. And like you say, you might not be able to do them all at one time, but as long as you keep them there to come back to at a later date, like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And I've kind of, from that day, and I do this with my clients as well, we no longer force anybody to choose just one thing. And this is
Yeah.
where we get a little bit murky in terms of digital marketing because people always say to me, like, what's your one key expertise? Can't tell you. We are a female entrepreneurial sweet shop, and you're just going to have to deal with that. Like, we are a
Love
pick and
that.
mix. So I cannot tell you that I'm a tutti frutti because I'm not. We have all of these different amazing sweets for you to try, and we do have experts. We do go deep into different kind of methodologies. Absolutely, we do training on a level that has been recognised globally as being the highest level training, and we're not taking things lightly when we do them, but we're also and as well as not instead of a kind
Yeah.
of agency. If somebody comes to us and they said they want support with podcasting, yes, we do that. If we genuinely don't do it, obviously we'll say we don't do it. But we've slowly built up each arm of the business for things that we know will support our people, that will be beneficial, that will give them a great return. And if I
Mhm.
can do something that's going to give somebody on the side of this an excellent return, usually with a much reduced investment and a sense of not having to worry, taking away the anxiety because we can be trusted, you can be sure that I'm going to try and make that happen. Like if there's a way for that to work, I'm going to make that work. And that's kind of how it happens for us quite naturally. We have grown into other areas, and I can't stay in one lane. You're lucky if I'm even driving in the right direction most days. So I'm definitely not sticking to one lane. I'm skipping between wherever I want to go, whenever I want to do that. And yeah, it's not just working for us; it's working for our clients. And you wouldn't
Yeah.
believe some of the big hitters that we've worked with. Um, One of the cost associations to losses within big companies that we've worked with when we've done reviews of different things. And again, you probably wouldn't expect this is something that we would necessarily do when we look to just be, a cute social media agency. But if we're looking at strategy for visibility, we're looking at product placement, we're looking at their positioning in the market. Yeah, I know I'm preaching to the converted talking to you, babe, but like we have to look at everything. We have to
Yeah.
look at the bird's eye view of everything. And when we look and we can see where money has been lost, you would not believe how often money has been lost just on the basis that somewhere somebody in senior management within that company made a decision that this was the box that the company needs to fit in,
Mm,
and then they try to force, like Cinderella's ugly sister's big toes into the glass slipper, all of the employees of that company and all of the dreams and thoughts and directions of those people into this box because Barry, who's been here for 27 years, has decided this is the framework the company is going to adopt.
mm,
And you can see it. And sometimes it's 3 years, and that's a hell of a time. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10 years later when they'll come to a company like us. And we're just your lowly little Northwest girly digital marketing agency. Yet we're the ones at the top of the boardroom telling you this thing is what
yeah,
you need to scrap. You're curling your potential up and trying to stuff it down into this box. And one of the reasons why things aren't working and you're bleeding money is because you're essentially trying to adopt something that doesn't naturally fit.
yeah,
And somebody along the line has told you, well, we have to be rigid and we have to do it this way. And it's a cookie cutter response and it's A, B, C, D. And we're like, sorry, we're ready to shake things up. We're about to turn this into a complete circus. Come with us for the chaos or don't. But we know that this works. And that's,
yeah,
a lot of the time, that's what we do. But I think there is that perception. And it's still, if you look at out on the digital sphere now, it's still kind of general advice. Stay in your lane.
yeah,
Be
yeah, yeah.
excellent at one thing,
That advice
you
is out there
know?
still, for sure.
Yeah.
And I
And I'm
think,
sure for some people it probably works, but in my experience, it often does more harm than it does good.
mm, I think there is weight to it in some aspects, especially the staying in your lane in regards to not focusing on what everyone else around you is doing. And I do agree from that aspect. It is important to just, if you constantly are looking around you what everyone else is doing, you completely lose sight of who you are and what you're trying to achieve. So in that aspect, I completely agree. But I also love the analogy of driving around. I've just got a picture of you in a pink car going like crazy all over the road. Like, I love that. And I think it's really important to be able to use your own creativity and your own skills in a way that suits you and not to be told, how to do that or what little box to fit yourself in. So, yeah, I absolutely love that. I'm here for that. I have,
100%. And you're quite right about comparison. I
yeah,
100% agree with you in terms of comparison. Look at what other people are doing, congratulate them on what they're doing, be aware of it, and then set it down and let it not be anything that would change your own directory.
yeah. The only way that I will ever look at people around me is for inspiration and motivation. If they can do it, I can do it. Look what they've achieved and use it for motivation to make me get to that next level. I don't
Yeah, and to
do
celebrate them
comparison
as
either.
well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because I think
yeah.
so often, and the other thing is people will try and, they'll look at me who's been in business for almost a decade and they're in their first year of business and they're like, oh, well, I'm not as far along as you. And I'm like, yeah, because I've been here for 10 years. I've got the wrinkles and the grey hairs to prove it. Like, it's not an overnight thing and you cannot compare yourself to somewhere else in completely different time zone of their journey. But you can definitely use it for motivation and like you say, celebrate them, celebrate the fact that it's achievable and put
Yeah,
it in your 5 to 10 year plan for your business, for sure.
absolutely. Yes, yes.
Right, I have one more question for you. I feel like I could literally talk to you all day, but I do have a school run to get to. So so the final question is, have you ever wanted to quit?
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
have. I have wanted to burn the whole thing down a few times. And usually on the back of those really tough experiences, like what we were talking about at the beginning,
Yeah.
we've had clients that we've had to fire. We have had people who not pay invoices who we've had to take to court. We've had
Hmm.
difficulties with getting good accountant support. I mean, this is all very basic business stuff. And you kind of know when you get into this arena that you're going to have some difficulties. It's not always going to be plain sailing, but there has been times when it's felt really rough and really personal, and the
Mm.
weight of the world feels like it's on your shoulders. And I sometimes have been in that state of mind of like, at this point in my business career, if I was to completely shut this down or sell it, which is always an option, always have an exit, plan in the back of your mind. If I wanted to do that, not only could I cash in handsomely, I could go and get myself a lovely cushy consulting 60 to 120 grand a year job. And when you suddenly kind of look at that and think, do I need the hassle? Do I
Yeah,
really need to worry about the thing? And the thing that always stops me is legacy. Because although I have the opportunity to walk away from the hard days, the idea of walking away from the good that we're doing and the change that we're making, and we've made history already in the last 2 years, which has felt absolutely amazing. And there's more of that in the future, and that's what you're actually giving up. And going back full circle to the start of our conversation, I always try and think to myself that I can't really see through this mud right now, and perhaps decisions being made from this position is not actually the best place
yeah,
to do that. I give myself a day or a week or a month. It's usually never more than a month that I need before I'm back to that kind of excited, motivated state. Um, but yes, and you know what? I think it's a bit unnatural. I don't know whether this is true, but all of my entrepreneurial friends, multimillionaire friends, and those who are just coming into their 5 figure, 6 figure situations, because I'm so lucky to have a complete spectrum of entrepreneurial friends in every kind of arena. I
yeah.
don't know one of them that hasn't had that moment.
No. Well, so far on this podcast, we've got 100% success rate of the answer yes. And this is why I ask it, because the reason that I set this podcast up is when I was going through those earlier days and I was having those tough times, I felt completely isolated, and it wasn't something that you see on social media or anywhere else at all. And I want to make it very clear to everybody, no matter where you are in your journey, that we all have those days. We all want to just throw it all in every so often. But for me, the longer I've been in business, now I recognize that it's a fleeting moment and I'm not serious. I'm just having a bad day and I'll be okay the next day or the next week, like you said. But in the beginning, it was so all consuming. And I think it's
Yeah,
because I am a very emotive person. I'm very in touch with my emotions and I feel things. And the business is like a personal, it's like an attachment to me. I say it all the time. I think it became my second baby. I think if I didn't have the business, I might have had a second child, but this is my child. So in those early days when things were going wrong, I was taking it really personally, and it felt like a physical attack on me. Now I don't even blink. I'm like, oh, that's rubbish, and yeah, that's a tough day. But it's not that I've built armor. I've just become aware that it's not personal and it is just business, and I have that space that I didn't have in the beginning. Um, but I just really wanted to make it clear that, like you said, we all have those days.
we
And
do.
I love the fact that not one person really has said no yet to that question.
That means you've had a lot of really wonderful, honest people on this podcast,
Yeah,
obviously. But
exactly.
yeah, no, absolutely. I totally get you. I used to take everything in quite personally and would feel just rotten. And don't get me wrong, don't I still kind of get annoyed. I definitely get
Mm,
annoyed when I can see behaviors that don't fit an ethical standpoint for me. I'm one of those people who always make sure that I'm paying invoices. I'm always, I've got lots and lots of core values that I adhere to, and I do get a bit annoyed when I come across people who are very, very openly professional and visible out on the online space, but behind closed doors, they're treating people like crap. And I
yes.
find that real difficult even now.
Mm,
But it isn't personal. And it's, 9 times out of 10, it's nothing to do with us. And there's nothing we could have done differently. And I mean, if there is something you could have done differently, then that's fantastic. Learn from the failure, do better next time. But, so often you look at these things, it's just part and parcel of being in business. Those
yeah.
bad days are just part of the deal.
Yeah, exactly. It is a roller coaster. We have those bad days, but we also have the most epic, amazing days ever. So it completely weigh each other out. And I think, to go into business with the expectation that you will never have a tough time and everything will be smooth sailing is not realistic in the slightest. You have to be prepared for those tough times. But what was really important to me is to not allow them to toughen me as a person. I like my soft shell. I like who I am as a person. And I never wanted to be toughened to the world, if that makes sense. So like I said, I've created that space and that spatial awareness now that these aren't personal attacks, but I haven't toughened to them still. They still, like I say, things still annoy me or, feel tough in those moments. But you need to know that the sun will come out again, and it's only in this blip and this moment that it's tough.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, darling. And I also think that that's why people like yourself and myself, we have to work on our kind of emotional and well-being state at such a high level. When you start to look at mastermind level, and when I run my masterminds and when I join other people's masterminds for myself,
Yeah,
you sometimes think that you're going to go in there and you're going to get a lot of tangible, practical, kind of strategy type of talk. And don't get me wrong, there is a bit of that, but so often what we're actually doing as business owners is at that level, we're taking care of our mindset, we're taking care of our emotional state, we are sound boxing off each other, so just completely bouncing ideas off each other and making sure that we're keeping some level of sanity throughout the roller coaster that is business.
yeah,
And there is no way to measure really how profoundly important that is for us. And that's why, when we look at these things, you get yourself into business, and at first you think, oh, I need social media, I need a website, I need business cards. Some people still feel like they need business cards, that kind of thing. There's like a tangible tick list. And then once you've been in business a little while, you start to value, actually what I need is
yeah,
a group of like-minded people who understand what I'm going through, so I can soundboard this off other people and actually
yeah,
kind of re-regulate my emotional state, recenter my mindset back to a place where I'm operating on the highest possible kind of view. And I think that's a lovely shift when you see somebody kind of go from their business infancy into that area where they actually recognize the importance of those things that perhaps don't look like a deliverable, but actually can be like a core requirement for the success of any company.
yeah. Dawn, I love that so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to all our listeners for sticking with us. I hope you found that really interesting. I will for sure put all of Dawnie's links into the show notes. So if anybody does want to reach out, connect with her afterwards, or find out more about how to work with her, then all the links will be in there. But yeah, Dawnie, just thank you so much for being so honest and open and sharing with us today. I truly appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
You're welcome. Have a great week, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, which was brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of female entrepreneurs and a proud sponsor of the Female Founders podcast. If you're running a small business and you're dreaming big, then Xero is here to help make those dreams a reality. Xero is all about supporting women like you, who are not just running businesses, but are also changing the game. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling up, join a global community of female founders who trust Xero to manage their finances efficiently. Just visit refer.xero.com/female founders to learn more. But for now, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with all the incredible female founders you know. And together, let's change what it means to be a female founder in today's world.